Hello and welcome to Gamers Table, a podcast discussion of tabletop role-playing games, war games, movies, books, and various other game-related topics. Be warned, this show contains some explicit material that may not be suitable for all audiences.
Hello and welcome to Gamers Table. My name is Eric.
This is Mike.
This is Dan.
This is Mark.
This is Jason.
And I'm Sean.
This episode we're going to talk about villains, but first I want to introduce some friends of ours. It's Mike and Ryan from Action Nerds Go.
Hello.
What's up, guys?
Nerds.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
From now on, you guys can call me Kramer, and then that'll alleviate all the confusion.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. The topic is what sets a good villain or a well-made villain apart from just average bad guys. You know, what makes an iconic villain?
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman makes a iconic villain.
Show over. Roll credits.
Roll
credits. Okay.
It was like from, what was that movie you did with Stone Cold? That movie you did with Brian Bosworth, where he was the
That's not
evil
what I was
biker leader.
of.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
A Brian Bosworth reference.
Yes.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, God.
How about we let our guests roll with this for a little bit before we start stepping all over ourselves?
I don't want to steal my ideas.
Well, I guess I'll take a shot at it. I was going to say Alan Rickman, actually, before. But when I found out about this, I said, you know, Alan Rickman's awesome, but I started trying to think about why he's awesome. And to me, the reason why Sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood and Hans Gruber in Die Hard are two of my favorite villains is because they're likable. You know, you kind of sort of root for them, and you don't even really know why. And I think that makes it humanizes the villain to where it's not just a big scary mask.
You just stole Mark's thunder.
No, I know. I just realized I screwed up. Every time I hear Alan Rickman, I immediately think of Lance Henriksen.
That's bizarre.
And vice versa.
Hey, he was great in what was that? Pumpkinhead.
Right. So
Great
it was
villain.
actually Lance Henriksen in the Stone Cold Brian Bosworth movie.
Oh, okay.
Not Alan Rickman.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like you
Right
didn't
now,
know
you guys
that.
have somebody screaming at the computer right now. They're listening to that, and they're going, "That wasn't Alan Rickman," and they're so mad
Right.
about that.
Somebody's slash fake you just stepped all over.
Huge Brian Bosworth fan.
Anybody who is a Brian Bosworth fan is probably pretty rabid. I'm just going to make that straight.
Yeah,
Ryan,
I would
what-
say Alan Rickman. Yeah, he's a good villain. I don't know if it's. I think I want to say it's like the snooty English accent. I think is probably
That helps.
I would
Sure.
agree.
I think
English people make good villains as well.
That's why they made
It's the Star Wars model. You know,
and they
English
made all
people
the-
are villains.
and they made all the best Nazis in World War II movies, too. It's always,
well,
there's always
yeah,
British
they-
guys playing the Nazis, right?
That brings me to another thing about bad guys is like the uniforms and like
Good
they
costumes.
got good
Oh, yeah.
costumes.
They're generally well groomed too. Very
Yeah.
nice suits.
They got fantastic tailors.
Yeah.
I think the voice, that definitely, if we're talking about movies, that's definitely a big thing. I mean, if you look at, James Earl Jones, Darth Vader's voice,
Yeah.
you can't get more iconic
A
than
very
that.
resonating voice.
And he's also kind of taken on a British affect a little bit. I mean, it's not
Vader's very mid-Atlantic.
Almost like a kind of like a Shakespearean almost.
Yeah.
Well, all the women in Star Wars are. It's kind of like a known thing is that they start off in the first movies like very British, and then they get more American as the series goes on. Like Carrie Fisher did it,
I think
and
that
Natalie
probably
Portman
had to
did
do with
it.
the amount of cocaine she was doing. Truthfully.
and the amount of gaffer tape on her nipples.
Yeah, she did. She ditched in the first movie. That
I guess
kind of,
I guess when you learn that your home planet's going to be exploded, you kind of just
yeah, you go from the mustache systems would slip through your fingers to what?
Right.
The ghetto Leia comes out.
Well, okay, so as we always do, we get back to Star Wars, and I think what makes the villains in Star Wars very iconic and almost everybody's ambitions are so vast and so big. Big ambitions, I think, kind of are driving factors to good villains.
Yeah.
Because but no great villain just wants to be like the lord of a township.
Well,
That may be how you start, but you have these huge aspirations.
Well, it's a James Bond kind of thing too. That all the James Bond villains, regardless of how good or bad they are, I mean, you've got your Goldfinger, and then you have your other lower, shittier villains, but they all want to rule the world or destroy every such and such. They always have these huge aspirations, these big plans, and it's kind of that same thing.
it's
where if you
usually
have
not
little
practical either.
No.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah. Back to the township thing. Was it Gary Oldman? I think in Book of Eli, he just wanted to rule the town, right?
That's true.
I don't know.
That's
See,
also
shit.
in a blasted nuclear apocalyptic wasteland
So
where
you're
the
saying
town's like all there is.
Proportionately, that's like owning a country.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Gary
I guess
Oldman,
in-
great villain.
Gary Oldman does play a good villain.
My favorite villain of all time is Gary Oldman.
Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
I was thinking from The Professional.
Fifth Element.
Oh, that one.
I was
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element, yeah. It's a good one.
I was thinking about Drexel.
Drexel.
Yes.
Gotta love Drexel. It must be White Boy Day.
Well, if I gotta go Gary Oldman as a villain, as much as I love him as Zorg in Fifth Element, I gotta go with The Professional. I can't remember his name. The character escapes me, but that's again a very complex villain.
That's the
where
greatest twisted, dirty cop
Yes.
ever.
Well,
Especially
and
when he's
that's-
doing the
that's-
drugs
that's
and
kind-
he's just getting all wigged out, and I'm like, oh, it's great. And then you got Jean Reno being super awesome to counteract it. It's the best.
It's like the perfect movie.
It is the perfect movie. It's got Natalie
yeah.
Portman in it. Granted, she's too young to be considered for.
She was like
you know.
9 in that movie.
She won an award, didn't she?
For being 9 in an action movie?
No, I think she. No, am I wrong on this? No, I wanted her to have won an award. It's that
In your
good.
mind,
In
she
my-
won.
She won my award.
And as far as Gary Oldman goes, he was also the best thing about the Lost in Space movie a few years ago.
yes.
Oh, see, I blocked that out of my mind. And you just
Well,
had
I
to
don't
go
know.
jamming
Lacey
it back
Chabert
in.
was all right, but she was again too young.
Well, Heather Graham was in that.
Yes.
Yeah,
True,
Roller
that too.
Girl.
hey,
Roller.
hey, what about Matt LeBlanc?
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc.
He's a terrible villain.
That's right.
He was in that?
Matt LeBlanc was the bomb.
Can we say that's the best Matt LeBlanc movie? Because I think it's the only one.
Matt LeBlanc.
No, it'd be that movie where he played baseball with a chimpanzee, wasn't it?
Oh dear.
You have to link to that now, Eric.
No, I'm not, because we're cutting that.
I can't believe how many people we know that were in the Lost in Space movie. This is
We just rattled them all off, I think, didn't
I
we?
think it's the nerd sci-fi connection.
Is it William Hurt or John Hurt? I always get those guys mixed up.
That's John Hurt.
John
Hurt.
William Hurt's really old.
Is it? I thought it was the other way around. John Hurt's British.
Yes.
William Hurt's.
he's the bad guy. Well, he's a good Sutledge villain in the V for Vendetta.
Yes.
But he's a little too monolithic to be really a good character. He's just kind of like this big target for the hero to just throw tomatoes at for the whole movie. So I don't know if he
With
really
an
counts
awesome British accent. I mean, that's another reoccurring
Yeah,
theme
that's
here.
the kicker.
I think that's kind of ingrained into
It's just
as
British-
far as Americans go.
Since the American Revolution, British people are evil.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's before then too.
I've actually kind of separated this episode out. One thing I do want to talk about is, what sets a villain apart from just another bad guy, and I came up with a few instances or examples. They have to have a motive. If you have a villain without a motive, why are they doing what they're doing?
They're just a thug.
like Skeletor.
Yes.
Yes, why is Skeletor like he is? What made Skeletor?
I've seriously been sitting here for 5-10 minutes trying to think, what did he want? I don't remember.
Maybe he wanted Castle Grayskull.
He was just mad.
He wanted to be the most ripped skeleton in all the universe.
Right, exactly.
Pulled it off.
See, his motive was he's freaking pissed that somebody ripped his face off.
That's what I was thinking. Sorceress has got his face in Castle Grayskull. That's what it is.
It's odd that you bring up.
He-Man at all?
Well, no, Skeletor in particular, because I just saw, I think it was on IO9, apparently there's like this weird gender-bending mashup, and there was a female Skeletor, and she was super hot.
I saw that.
Wow.
Like, this should not be a thing. It just shouldn't be, because I don't want to see a female He-Man.
It's Rule 34.
She-Man.
She-Man, yes,
They've got
exactly.
plenty of websites dedicated to She-Man.
Sure they do.
Whoa.
Dare you to Google that.
Yeah, don't Google that.
Tangent.
Now I have to link to that.
It's funny that motive is totally important too, because we really briefly, when we were discussing, we're remembering the topics for the show, is that motivation totally is important, because in my mind, somebody like Jason or just a slasher serial killer doesn't really strike me as a villain, because he's more like a monster. He doesn't really have any.
Right.
There's no plot. There's no plan. There's no arc. It's just him killing teenagers.
Yeah, the alien.
And Jaws is another one where Jaws isn't. He's definitely the antagonist of the movie, but he's not a villain necessarily, because he's just an animal. I can't really put him in the same area as I can like Darth Vader or somebody who has
I agree with that.
Yeah, motive, but they also have to have a sense of malice. Something else that I came up with is they have to have the means to be anti whatever the heroes are doing. No Bond villain is ever poor.
You can't just, I want to take over the galaxy in my Buick.
That's right.
Right.
Do it.
In the family truckster.
Right.
Right.
One thing I like, for me, that creates like really good villains is like Gary Oldman from The Professional. Not only is he larger than life, but he's also part of the establishment.
Right. So he has the connections and
Right.
the means.
He's
to,
part of the good guys, quote unquote, but he himself is a bad guy just using the system.
So you don't necessarily have to be wealthy. You just have to be connected to resources that you manipulate.
That the heroes may not have.
Either that, or you have to at least be some sort of version that can compete. Because if Obi-Wan is a powerful Jedi and you're going to just throw stormtroopers at him, there's no drama there. There's no threat. You have to put him up
At least
against.
Thor 66 comes down.
That's right.
That'd be formidable.
Or even worse, battle droids.
Tear up some
yeah.
battle droids. Mike could probably tear up some battle droids.
Now, when it comes to gaming specifically, survivability, they have to be able to recur, because if the Bond villains, things like that, is not a really is a good one-off example. But
Spectre.
Okay,
Blofeld. kept
Yeah,
coming back.
Blofeld kept coming back. It was a different actor each time.
but
Same cat, though.
So it
Same
was
cat.
the same cat, I'm sure it was.
But in a gaming sense, to have a good villain, you got to encounter them more than once, either not necessarily through combat, but just at least.
And as much as we complain about having to fight that villain, oh my God, didn't we just defeat this guy 2 years ago?
Right.
As much as we hate having to fight a guy again, when we finally take him down once and for all and final for good, then we feel bad.
Yeah, but see, we've only taken him down once and for all and finally for good because Mike hasn't brought him back again yet.
That's right.
So your sense of satisfaction is somewhat...
Kind of like Megamind.
yes.
I would say it's probably pretty accurate. I was in a game of Shadowrun for years and years and years, and our big head of all of our little enemies was this recurring enemy. And so we would defeat his minions pretty routinely, but then every once in a while we'd have to fight him. And what makes it good is how believable it is when he gets away. Because it really, you don't want a Deus Ex Machina that just says, oh, we've beaten the bad guy to a bloody pulp, but then a magic storm comes and just blows him away so that you guys don't get the finishing blow. That's not very satisfying. So as long as the recurring villain has a plausible way to, I'll get you next time, gadget, and then leave, then it keeps the
Claw. That's something I never really thought about in Shadowrun. But you could take a villain, like say you got a mage in Shadowrun who's your big bad. You beat the crap out of him, down for the count, dying on the floor, you collect up all of the loot and you leave. 2 years later, you're playing those characters again. That guy's back, but he's like a street Sam.
Oh, like
all
a
cybered out.
like a burned out mage.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's just kicking your ass a different way. I mean, that's a potential we've never really explored
Defeat him a
before.
third time, then he's a spirit.
Right.
Also, another aspect of the villain, the heroes have to either A, respect, or B, fear the villain. The heroes don't just go and waste them the first time they see him.
Oh no! If it's too easy, there's no story.
So there has to be a sense of, I can't do this right now because I respect his position, I respect his friends, or I respect his power.
Well, I think a lot of that will depend, too, on how powerful your characters are.
Right.
If you're playing a character who's, at least in the player's mind, considered to be a powerful character, I think it's more likely that you're going to be disrespectful to that person that ideally your character should respect. But, I know I've been in that position a few times, and Mike knows that I'm going to do that, and he's setting me up for a downfall.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's, as far as the story goes, that works out great.
How many times, no matter what game we've been playing, our plan come down to let's just walk in like we own the place.
Every time.
Pretty much every
usually
time.
what we do all the time.
We did that last week.
Right.
That did not work out very well.
Hey, I got away.
There was no villain
I got away.
involved in that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, what when you're creating a villain, what do you put into it to make it great? Like your favorite villains?
Yeah, it's got to be a recurring villain. It's got to be a villain that, you don't waste in your first encounter, much less in one shot, which can happen easily in some games. You can put a lot of playing into a villain, and the heroes just come up and crit
That-
400 damage or something.
That always happens.
So once we learn how
Always
to
happens.
Once we learn how to break the game, yeah.
So really, I like villains that are like shadowy, villains behind the scenes. You got to
Right.
go through layers of henchmen to get to them. If you want to use a more modern game sense, maybe you only see them on a video screen, or you don't actually physically run into them, because you got to kind of keep that at arm's length until it's the right time.
until it's time for the big boss fight.
You prefer the string puller. You like the guy behind the
Yes.
scenes actually setting everything up.
Right.
And I think a few instances of that would be like in Greyhawk, it'd be Ayuz or Eli Tomarast or
No, Tomarast was pretty up for
He was
your
pretty.
face.
He was like Wolverine, man. Emperor Palpatine.
Well,
He was a string puller.
yeah,
'Cause
that
he always had a cat's paw.
that is another.
Right.
I got an interesting string puller that I didn't think about until today. Kaiser Soze.
Oh,
yeah.
love Kaiser
Kaiser
Soze.
Soze is one of the great movie villains.
Love
ever.
that movie.
Excellent.
Who may or may not have ever done anything.
Right.
That's why he's so great.
That's right. Verbal Kent could have just made it all up.
Yes.
The villain that you don't know is the villain is a classic.
Kind of like Osman